Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of The Cannibal Caper by Rosalind Barden, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1. I was hot and miserable. End of summer in Los Angeles was always the worst. In the downtown flatlands below Bunker Hill, a weak fan sputtered in Chum Chum's dusty storefront, rattling the blinds covering its front window facing City Hall, flapping the paper, "Get out," flapping the paper "Get Out" sign hanging from a string over his glass front door. He propped his door open enough to let in the heat baking the sidewalk street. He propped his door open enough to let in the heat baking the sidewalks and street. Chum Chum hummed happily. How could he stand it? How could anyone stand summer downhill here? Bunker Hill was baking too, but at least it was high enough to catch a breeze. Hard morning sun sliced through the gaps in the blinds. I stood facing Chum Chum's desk. He hummed and poked around the large envelope bookie had me run down to his boss. Same as usual. A lot changed for me, good old Sparky, in 1932. I turned 11. I wasn't wanted for murder anymore. I wasn't sleeping in cellars anymore. But by the end of the summer, I was still running for bookie. He owns my soul nowadays. Like I said, same as usual. "Ah, my Rosie, how are you doing?" He wasn't talking to me, but to his goldfish, who lived in a bowl of water on his messy desk. The fish swished around in her bowl to face him. He pulled his hand out of the envelope and waggled it at Rosie. Each of his fingers wore one or two or three rings, all heavy with gems, all paste. Rosie waggled her orange fish tail. I had to say, Rosie's tail was nice, long, and flowing. As she waggled her fancy tail, he giggled and then laughed in his weird half-horse, half-baby laugh. He did more finger waggling at the fish. Was he keeping me waiting in his hot, sweating office on purpose? He sat with his bare feet soaking in a pan of ice. I could see those puffy toes sticking out from the cuffs and the razor creases in his silk pajama legs. I could barely feel a ghost of cool drifting over from the chunk of ice his toes massaged in time with his fingers waggling to Rosie. I suppose that's how Chum Chum could stand his office. He had that chunk of ice. Chum Chum's eyes noticed me again. He frowned. He waggled his waggling fingers smoothed his thin black hair, plastering his forehead, and adjusted the white silk tie on his white silk pajama shirt he wore under his red silk robe that had a repeating pattern of eyes. Those eyes made me feel like he was watching me, even when he wasn't. Then Chum Chum's hands went back into the envelope. "Why do you stand so far away, little girl?" he asked in his odd little girl's voice while eyeing me. It was because Bookie told me to keep an arm's reach away from Chum Chum. He had told me 100 times. I didn't tattletale that to Chum Chum. I just shrugged and looked at my bare feet. I heard Chum Chum's hand rattling in the envelope, or maybe it was another envelope some other kid dropped off. I shot a quick eye at Chum Chum and what he was up to. I didn't like to watch too much. Maybe I didn't want to know, but I was curious, or like Bookie said, too curious. Sometimes Chum Chum pulled out bills in neat stacks held together with ribbon or shoelaces from the envelopes. Other times it was slips of paper or paper folded into little bundles about the right size for jewelry coins. I've come into Chum Chum's office and seen piles of money on the floor. Next time it was gone. There were always leaning stacks of boxes in his office, shoelaces, half-eaten sandwiches, you name it. It was hard to walk in it sometimes. Once I saw a bucket filled with a purple liquid, wine maybe, or rot gut. That wasn't allowed with prohibition and all. His office was across from City Hall, but anything not on the up and up had no problem happening in Chum Chum's place. He even used to run a small speakeasy in the storefront and had his office in the back behind red folding screens. Not long ago, he moved the speakeasy a block over. Maybe he needed this whole space for his junk. "Well, I suppose you're about done here. What's your name? Sparkles?" He laughed. He knew my name was Sparky. He slid another envelope toward me, a lumpier one than the envelope I carried down from Bunker Hill. Okay, that was the one I needed to run up the hill to Bookie. I was Bookie's runner, and I knew the routine. I was about to put my hand on the lumpy envelope when Chum Chum's head suddenly jerked up like his head never jerked up. His eyes bulged and his mouth opened, also something he never did. He wasn't looking at me, but past me. I turned around, and through the gaps in the Venetian blinds over his window and door, I saw an army of cops swarming out from City Hall, heading straight to Chum Chum's office. Stomping in the lead was Mug, the oversized cop who wanted to round me up and toss me in an orphan home. I had a place to live nowadays, but it wasn't official, and I had my reasons for keeping that under my hat. As the cops got closer, Chum Chum's brown little self moved faster than I'd ever seen him move. His bare feet scrambled, knocking over the pan of ice. The ice chunk rolled out and drifted with the tide to my feet. Felt good, but only for a second. Should I run? What would Mug do with me? I ran for the door. Too late. Mug blocked it. Get out of here, Sparky. You don't belong in this sewer with that man-eater, he hollered. I couldn't get out of anywhere because, well, Mug was blocking my way. I tried hiding behind a stack of boxes, but that only made them fall over onto Mug when he charged through the door. What was in them spilled over Mug. Doll heads, boxes of hairless doll heads with winking eyes. Mug kicked them away. They went tumbling across the floor, smashing into more boxes. Chum Chum hadn't been sweating before, but now drops of sweat fell from the tip of his nose. His shaking hands were all over Rosie's bowl. Her water sloshed. Rosie almost jumped out of the bowl. Chum Chum was crying. Give me the fish, Mug ordered Chum Chum. You can't take that thing in the slammer with you. Mug pointed his club in case Chum Chum missed the point. Mug loomed toward Chum Chum, who wasn't a whole lot taller than me, though he was about 3 times as wide. No, make that 4. Well, maybe 5. Chum Chum howled and hugged the bowl close. Mug lunged his meaty mitt toward the fish bowl. Before I knew what was happening, Chum Chum tossed the bowl toward me, fish and all. I was too far away. I'd never catch it. I dove. I slid on Doll's head. I reached. Oh no, I fell, and the bowl fell into my hands. Lucky catch. Rosie whirled around and around inside the bowl, not happy at all. There was more howling from Chum Chum and a scuffle as he tried to hide behind the boxes that fell over and spilled corks, which made sense for a bootlegger like Chum Chum, among other things. His red robe tore and flapped loose. More boxes spilled, more doll parts, arms, and legs, which didn't make sense, but what do I know? Sparkles, take care of my baby doll Rosie for me, Chum Chum called to me as Mug and the other cops dragged him out of the office, doll parts crunching under their feet. Then I heard him shout in his mean, not girly voice. I got dirt on everybody. You tell them all. I got so much dirt, they'll be sorry. Tons of dirt. At least they weren't dragging me away. That was the main thing. But what was I going to do with this fish, Rosie? I'd have to ask Bookie that question. Another thing I need to ask. What did Mug mean by that man-eater?